Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 6 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Wednesday. It turns out it's a rainy Wednesday a little bit. Boy, the weather just changed in the last hour, I think. We have had such a great lineup this morning, and it's continuing right now. It is an honor to say that our next guest is on the air with us. She is Madhulika Sikka. She is the NPR News Executive Editor, a veteran award-winning broadcast journalist, the recipient of 4 Emmys. How about that, Robin?
Congratulations.
She's an Edward R. Murrow Award winner, 2 DuPont Awards, a Peabody Award, awards from the National Association of Black Journalists, and awards from the South Asian Journalists Association. And all of those credentials, and the one we're talking about the most is this one. She's a breast cancer survivor. How about that? And good for her. The book is we're going to focus on is the book she wrote called A Breast Cancer Alphabet, an A to Z guide to living with breast cancer. And it's an honor to say good morning, Madhulika Sikka. Good morning, Madhulika.
Good morning, Larry. Good morning, Robin. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Good. I hope I said your name right. Did I do okay?
You did okay.
Where are you right now?
I'm in my office in Washington, D.C., here at the NPR headquarters, and it's snowy here.
Oh, it is?
Yes, it is.
See, we're in Florida, and we always like to rub it in, but I really would, I would like to see some snow.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, come on up. We've had way too much of it this winter.
Can I bring up there was a newscaster, I believe it was, who, like in the last 6 months or so, went to have a mammogram on the air. And she was determined to be positive. She had breast cancer. Remember that story?
Yeah, it was Good Morning America.
Okay, thank you. Did that bring back memories for you? I mean, I'm sure that's the moment of truth for all of you ladies that get that news.
Well, I think, we talk about mammograms a lot these days. There's such a lot of conflicting information, and I think that is the hardest thing for a patient to understand and deal with. Should you stop having mammograms at all when you're in your 40s? Should you maybe have them? What do you do with the information? I think it's a very cluttered world right now that's hard to sift through.
Okay, and the big message is what? You should never stop, right?
Well, depends on who you talk to in the medical community, and there's actually a very vibrant debate right now on this issue. But the American Cancer Society and I believe the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists still recommend an annual mammogram. The proponents of not having an annual mammogram say that we overtreat, and that's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
I think it's actually the more important thing is if you get a mammogram, what do you do with the information? And I think that's true for much of medicine these days. We are inundated with information. We have to know what to do with it.
I would expect that the doctor would know what to do with it, no?
Well, you hope that the doctor will know what to do with it. If you have a pushy patient who want to do X, Y, or Z, I was very fortunate to have a team of doctors who were fantastic and took all my questions and walked me through everything and really helped me think through what was right for me. And I think that that's the most important thing. You have to do what's right for you, and you have to understand that as much as we want the doctors to have a definitive yes or a definitive no answer to questions, there are some things that are just in the middle.
Oh, really?
But you had a double burden because it's not just what's right for you, which is the most important, but then what is right for the family, because you have more than yourself to think about, and that could be a heavy weight emotionally.
It is, and your family lives and breathes it every day, and they may not know exactly what you're going through. And I hope that this book will appeal not just to patients who are going through it, but to the people around them to help them figure out how they can best help the patient.
Yeah, and it's obvious how you have won so many awards. You are very, very good at what you do. So you've broken it up into, I guess, 26 chapters. Each one starts with a letter of the alphabet, and you kind of use that kind of as a framework for delivering your message.
Yeah, I decided on, I didn't have tons of things to say. I had some things to say about a lot of different things. So I wanted to write something, some of the entries are really just 2 or 3 pages long. I wanted to write something that you could dip in and out of. I found it very hard to concentrate on reading when I was going through my treatment. You just get a little addled. So I wanted something that you could dip in and out of, not feel that you have to start at the beginning and go all the way through to the end. And that would provide some information or some help, or maybe even make you laugh on occasion.
Yeah, maybe even make you laugh. I wanted to point that out too. You are in the book caressing, I guess is a good word, emotional issues. You're kind of soothing a little bit in the way that you've referred to some things, and if that makes sense. And you know what I'm drawing from is, if you don't mind me saying, my mom went through the diagnosis, the breast cancer diagnosis, and I remember.
How's she doing?
I'm sorry?
How is she doing?
Oh, she's passed away, but she didn't pass away for that. She actually was a survivor for 20-something years.
Yes.
But I wanted to kind of go back to that moment just for you and whatever, for everybody, I guess. I was there in the hospital. She didn't know, I guess, that she had breast cancer. She knew that she would find out when she woke up from the surgery. The doctor said, if you wake up without a breast, then you had cancer. If you wake up with a breast, then you didn't have cancer. It was simple as that. She woke up. I was with my dad, and she said, did I lose my breast? And he said, yes, you did. And I could see it in her face where she was devastated. But she was an optimistic lady. So,
Very.
And that's why I think that's where I'm going with in this part of the conversation, is that you've given that in the book some. In spite of this terrible diagnosis and terrible thing you're going through in your life, you've given some levity, I guess.
Well, thank you. I think you have to have a bit of levity in life, and I think that helps. And the structure of the 26 letters really allowed me to go in a lot of different directions, which was also very, appealing as a writer.
And you address quitting in your book, because sometimes it's far easier to quit than to persevere.
It is, and the point I want to make in that chapter is there are some things you can't quit. You're not in control of those things. But there are some days where it's all awful and you feel terrible, and that's the day you're not going to get out of bed. It's okay to do that. Doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, just live with it and go with it. I had a complicated relationship with food during my treatment, and people want to be plying you with particular kinds of food, and nothing tastes good, or a lot of things don't taste good, so you just stop eating them, and hopefully your taste buds come back, and you can go back to eating them.
How are you doing now? You asked me about my mom. Let me ask you, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. I'm full-time job, full-time mom. I'm on drugs for the treatment to reduce the recurrence. That's what it's about. Right. And my hope is that I won't be one of those statistics where it comes back, although unfortunately there is more metastatic breast cancer out there than you would think.
There's always a question about whether a woman should have breast reconstruction or not. What made you go to the route of having the reconstruction?
Because I had a single mastectomy and I didn't want to be uneven.
Okay.
But a lot of women don't. I mean, I think that is a purely personal choice. And it's wonderful that we have the ability to go through rather extraordinary reconstruction now. It wasn't an option before. Wow.
Yeah. And I've already told you that my mom passed away, and in going through my mom's things after she died, I found 2 prosthetic breasts. She only had 1 breast removed, but I found 2. And it just occurred to me, wow, how brave she was and how good-humored she was. She must have been walking around with this heavy piece of soft plastic on her chest just so she could feel normal, Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on advice from people, because you hear stories like from Suzanne Summers, for example, somebody who took an alternative way, I think. Maybe I have that story wrong. But it never, without her even mentioned. I mean, you have that all the time. You get cancer and everybody and their brother knows how to treat it.
I think that's true. Everybody and their brother thinks they know how to treat it. The lesson I have learned is everyone's cancer is different, and really the most important relationships are the relationships with your medical team and your own curiosity and someone with you to help you go through it. I mean, every appointment that I had, my husband was there being the scribe, taking notes, so that we could have a record of what we talked about. We would be prepared with questions. You have to be your own advocate.
And when a person is diagnosed with cancer and they are right there with the medical doctors, should they, if there's something that they don't agree with the doctors, should they be open enough to have a dialogue, and then if they don't like that particular doctor, to be brave enough to change?
Absolutely, and I think that we, as patients, need to do a little more of that. If you are not happy with what you're hearing, or you feel that you're not getting the information that you need, it's okay to see if you can see somebody else. I was fortunate enough to be treated at a place that has a cancer center and an extraordinary team of doctors who deal with every part of dealing with cancer, and I know that many people around the country may not be as fortunate.
Do you know, I hope this doesn't sound too corny, but when we are married, we're considered the two become one, right? That's what we're told. And when we go through life together, man and woman, whatever we are going through, we're going through it together. So when it comes to sexual issues, you do discuss this in the book about feeling anxiety or feeling bad even, that you're not interested or that it hurts, but I would think the other half of the one that you became when two became one. In other words, the guy, the husband, not necessarily yours, but I mean, he obviously has to have an understanding of what's going on with the other half of himself.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that it takes two, and I think. Somebody just asked me about this recently, sort of how do you get over that? And the most important thing is to talk. I think throughout cancer treatment, I don't know if you follow a young woman on the New York Times. She has a blog called Life Interrupted. She was diagnosed at the age of 22 with cancer. And she has a circle of young women where none of this comes up. And all the things they talk about what is happening to your body, that just doesn't come up. And obviously when you're 22 and thinking about the rest of your life, that's got to be really important. So I think that conversation is key. In all the many things they talk about the impact that the treatment is going to have in your life, that's not a thing that comes up as much as in, say, prostate cancer discussion.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. You would think it would be just as equal.
I think where the discussion goes is questions of fertility. Especially if you are at that age where you might be wanting to have children.
Oh, okay, right.
And you have treatment, fertility is a slightly different focus.
Were you stronger for your husband when he was diagnosed with his cancer a decade before you were diagnosed with yours?
I think we were strong for each other. It's kind of a weird, we talk about medical math, a weird thing that both of us should have been diagnosed with cancer in our lifetimes. But it did help us figure out what we needed to do and how we needed to approach the medical community.
So Vias for Vacation, have you taken one?
I did, yes. And in fact, it was a wonderful goal. When I was diagnosed, for years we had talked about going to Istanbul. And of course, the day you're diagnosed, you have very dark thoughts and you go to very dark places and, you worry about not seeing your kids grow up. And, and I said, I'm going to die and I haven't been to Istanbul. So we actually did take a vacation sort of after my surgeries and after the chemotherapy, before a bunch of other surgeries when I had some energy. We dropped our kids off with my father and my sister and we took a vacation.
Wow, wow. Can I share something else with you that you just reminded me of? Years ago, I was invited as a radio host to attend some kind of a party or something. And I didn't want to go, and I asked my mom and dad, would you like to go on my behalf? It's a big to-do, and you might meet some, well-known people. It might be fun. So they took me up on the offer, and they went to whatever it was. I don't remember. But they handed out these biscuits or muffins or something. And then everybody was instructed to be careful, don't bite into the muffin, open it gently, and some of you will have a plastic prize baked into the muffin. And so my mom opened up her muffin, and boy, that sounded funny, didn't it?
No,
I know. And then they said, if you've got a green leprechaun or something like that, then you have won the grand prize. It's a cruise on the Mississippi River on the Mississippi Queen cruise boat.
Yeah.
And so my mom had the green leprechaun.
That was cool.
So she and my dad won this amazing prize. Unfortunately, she had the cancer. And unfortunately, she couldn't go on the cruise. But long story short, just to kind of shorten it up, they postponed it. She went through the therapy. And I know part of what you write about in the book is the hair loss, because she was so worried about her. She didn't go bald, but her hair was greatly thinned. And she always had a full head of hair. So she was very conscientious about that. Didn't want to go on the cruise because of that. Fortunately, my dad was able to convince her, no, we should go on this vacation. It'd be nice. And again, going through old photographs that I found as I was cleaning out her house the last 6 months, there she is on the boat, all smiles, and the hair that she wished would have been normal was not there. In other words, she had the funny hair that she was always embarrassed about, but still, there was the smile because of the vacation.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think it's really important to take time out because it takes you out of the world that you're living in, what I call cancer land. And it doesn't have to be an exotic trip. It can be, a day trip to somewhere just to get out of the space that you're in.
You stress in your book also that people that are doing their own research over the internet and in different volumes of books, that they shouldn't believe everything they read because it could be totally opposite.
I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think that is one of the things I learned from when my husband was diagnosed. I looked up a lot of stuff, and I scared myself to death. There's a lot of information out there because everyone has their cancer is peculiar to them, and I think that we don't quite get that part. And that's why there is some useful stuff out there, obviously, but it's general, and you have to deal with your very specific kind of treatment.
Madhulika Sikka is our guest. Let me just reintroduce you, Madhulika, for those just tuning in. Madhulika is the NPR News Executive Editor. She's a veteran award-winning broadcaster journalist, recipient of 4 Emmys, the Edward R. Murrow Award, 2 DuPont Awards, a Peabody Award, awards for the National Association of Black Journalists, awards from the South Asian Journalists Association, and her book is called The Breast Cancer Alphabet, in which she takes each letter of the alphabet and kind of explains what you might go through, what she went through, some of the things. X is for exhaustion.
Yes.
Tell me about how being exhausted and how you tried to ignore it.
Well, the exhaustion, I felt it was important to say exhaustion, not fatigue, because they talk about fatigue when they talk about the impact that chemotherapy will have on you. But this is a real, you sort of feel like a rag doll, and some days you can't put one foot in front of the other, or there's tingling in your fingers. And it's a very whole body experience. And one of the things they recommend is that you walk every day. And there were days when, I would just get one of my kids or my husband, and we would just walk around the block so I could keep everything moving. But it was exhausting, and that's when you want to quit, because you can't put one leg in front of the other.
Did you have the experience of having you and your husband and your children attend cancer support groups? Was that part of the healing process?
It was not for us. I think, I was fortunate or unfortunate to know women who'd gone through this, so I had people I could talk to. I had really good doctors, and we talked to our kids if they wanted to talk about it. So I think for me, probably writing helped a lot. And in fact, at Georgetown University, where I was treated, they do have programs for writing, painting, all sorts of things to help you go through the process.
Oh, wow. You probably won't ever know how many women have been comforted by reading the book, but I'm imagining that that's the ultimate destination for your writing in this case. I'm guessing it'll be on the bedside of many women who are currently going through the different things you go through when you are after being diagnosed with breast cancer.
Well, that is my hope, and I have heard from some people already who have read it who have felt that it explains how they went through it as well. You know, there's a narrative about breast cancer and how one is supposed to go through it, but things are not quite as rosy.
And you always keep the levity about you, though. That's one of the most important things you stress.
Yeah, you know, there are days when you're miserable and horrible to everybody, and you're allowed to be that person, and there are other days when you can just laugh about it. You know, my brother is bald, so I got to pose with my brother in pictures and look just like my brother. I had no idea that my head would feel cold. You know, it was the winter when I first had my head shaved, and I would sleep with a hat. You know, who knew?
Right?
You have to try and keep your wits about you. And as I say, I feel fortunate to have had good treatment and excellent doctors. And sadly, there are many women who are not as fortunate as me on that score.
One of the reviews on the back from Cokie Roberts says, this useful and often amusing little book should be the first present you give someone who's been diagnosed with breast cancer. So let me give it away. Let me give the copy I have away. If I have a listener who would like it, it's a wonderfully written book. It's a hardbound edition. It is called A Breast Cancer Alphabet, and it is yours if you ask for it. The rest of us have to go buy it. Look up Madhulika Sikka's name online, and you'll be able to find it, I'm guessing. Madhulika, do you have a website you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I have a website called abreastcanceralphabet.com, which has information about the book and some excerpts and links to social media. And I would like to say I've started a Tumblr called abreastcanceralphabet.tumblr.com, where I am encouraging people to submit their own letters. You know, I chose these particular letters for my book, but that's not everybody's alphabet. So I would love to hear from people who have their own version. And, you know, who knows, maybe we could put together a whole dictionary.
Oh, wow. And forgive me for this. This is just me being silly, but I always try to figure out an accent. And I'm having a hard time figuring out where you're from. Where are you originally from?
Well, I'm actually a Londoner, but I've lived in America a long time. I came to America because I married an American.
Oh, wow. So that's a watered-down British accent?
Yeah, very watered down. You know?
Oh, there it is. I heard it. There's the watered.
Water, yes. It's impossible to get a glass of water in this country. So I'm somewhere, I guess my accent sort of moves, most of the time it's mid-Atlantic, and I mean in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, sort of halfway.
Oh, no. No.
Halfway between London and Washington. When I go home to London, you know, my husband says, oh, my God, you talk just like your sisters and your brother.
And where's he from? Where's your husband from?
He's from Providence, Rhode Island.
There you go.
Oh, and they talk like Long Islanders. Rhode Islanders and Long Islanders have the same accent.
You'd have a hard time figuring out where he's from, too. But I still, after all these years, say banana and tomato and bath. You know, there's still a little bit of London in me.
Right. Yeah. And you listen to the Beatles.
Yes.
And you drink from a bottle. Well, a great writing. What an honor to be able to say you're on our show. We became fans instantly. Madhulika Sikka, thank you for taking some time out of your day to be on our show.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I really hope, thank you for telling people about the book. I really hope it'll be helpful.
Very great interview. All right, we will take a little break, and we'll be right back.
Today in Florida Ag News on the Southeast AgNet, what will happen to China's growing and huge cotton stockpile? USDA's Gary Crawford has the report.
China this year could end up with half the world's supply of cotton as stockpiles have been building. This stockpile is overhanging the market and has U.S. growers and cotton traders a little worried. What's going to happen to all that cotton and when?
I don't think anybody really knows how they're going to draw that stock down.
Agriculture Department China analyst Fred Gale telling USDA's Outlook Forum that the stockpile was not a conspiracy to corner the cotton market. It was an unintended